Hey, I know I'm late to the conversation on this one, but I felt that the discussion around Beyonce winning Country Album of the Year just has too much buzz not to talk about it. But before we get into it, I have a few things I would like to preface. First off, we all know that the Grammys are a sham. They're rigged, they're overly ridiculous, but we're not going to get into that right now in this video. There's plenty of information out there and channels that could definitely break that silliness down a lot better than I could, so we're not going to get into that today. That's for another time. Second, if you've been around the channel for a while, I'm sure you already know what my opinion about this is going to be. But before I shell it out, let me just say Beyonce can sing. She doesn't have a bad voice. I just don't personally care for it. So while approaching this, I'm going to do my best to be objective about it. Also, I don't like country music, so I feel that I have the ability to be objective about it because there's no artist that I was hoping was going to win. So I have no eggs in the basket, as it were. I have respect for country music. There are a lot of talented musicians within that genre, but it's just not a genre that I myself personally enjoy. So I think this is going to be a little bit easier for me to be objective about it because I don't have a particular interest in the genre itself. So let's talk about the silliness. To begin with, let's talk about the genre of the record of Cowboy Carter because I heard it was going to be a country album, and so I had no intention of actually listening to it. But the other day, because of how many people were popping in my feed upset about this, I figured I should probably check it out. So I took the time to listen to it, and I just gotta say, it's not a country album. And I know some people are going to say, well, it had country elements to it. And did you even listen to the record? And yes, I did. I listened to it, and yes, there are elements throughout the record of country in it. However, that does not make it a country album. There are lots of artists out there which include pieces of other genres within their music without changing the overall genre of their records. And that's the world we live in now. Genres are becoming increasingly fluid. Granted, we do still have numerous artists out there that stay rigid with their genres, but as a whole, there's a lot more bending of the rules, I guess you could say, in today's music. The only song on that record that was blatantly country was the song Texas Hold'em, which, when it comes to songs that are overplayed, that song was absolutely overplayed. Especially, too, when you listen to each song on the album, Texas Hold'em is not her best song on the record, even though her vocals on American Requiem are a bit too much for me at points. I do believe that that was a better song than Texas Hold'em. I know Texas Hold'em was popular and they played a lot, but definitely overplayed, and I don't think it was as good as the other songs on the record. And just because she got country artists onto the record, which Miley Cyrus isn't really a country artist anymore, if we're being real, it doesn't make the record a country record having those artists on there. And just because you covered Jolene with Dolly Parton, it doesn't make it a country record. You have to look at it from a whole piece perspective, not just a few of those pieces. From start to finish, if you consider all of the sounds, the instruments, the vocals, the putting together of all these elements, I would categorize Cowboy Carter as a gospel blues pop record. This record makes me feel like it was made with the intention of trolling the country music community. Like it's blatant in their face. In the song Spaghetti, it straight up says, genres are a funny little concept, aren't they? Yes, they are. In theory, they have a simple definition that's easy to understand, but in practice, well, some may feel confined. Like it's right there in front of everybody to see. And speaking of the song Spaghetti, it gave me secondhand embarrassment listening to it. It was painful to listen to, honestly. I'd actually say it was the song that I liked least from this record, and honestly was probably the worst song on the album. Now, let's take a step back for a second. Well, we'll finish with Beyonce in a minute, but real quick, let's look at the albums that Cowboy Carter was up against. I'll save the one for last that I think should have won in that category. Let's start off with Kacey Musgraves' album Deeper Well. The challenge with these things sometimes is an album fits better in a similar genre or a subgenre that feels out of place. So on Beyonce's record, it wasn't wrong when she said genres seem simple but aren't really. There are songs that are blatantly one genre, but as we see in genres like metal, there are numerous subgenres and differences that can often be delicately subtle. Deeper Well is one of those records that straddles that line. To me, it felt more like a folk record, which I guess you could argue is a subgenre of country music, but it didn't really feel like a country record. I don't think it was so far off that a person could definitively say that it wasn't, so it's close enough, I guess. but to me, it didn't sound like an album that should be in the running for country album of the year. Next up, we have Chris Stapleton's album Higher, and this is clearly a country album. There's no doubts there. For myself, I don't know if I would consider this an award-winning album, but it definitely does fit in the right category. Now, Lainey Wilson's Whirlwind feels more like country music that came out in the early 2000s. My sister was a big fan of country music at the time, so when I was younger, I heard a lot of that era's country music, and this album felt more like that to me. As far as country music goes, I think it ticks all the boxes and strikes enough of a balance of gentle, kind of slow songs and that upbeat, grab your cowboy hat kind of songs to keep a person's interest. And I feel it ran a close second to what I personally feel should have won Country Album of the Year, Post Malone's F1 Trillion. I think Post Malone's album was the best of the group. There are a couple of songs that don't quite fit in the country genre on the record, but like we talked about before, just because there's a couple songs that don't fit does not mean that the rest of the record has to fit into the category of just those two songs. You have to look at it as a whole. And overall, this was a country record, and I think it definitely came out better than the other records that it was up against. When you compare all the albums together, Beyonce's album was the least country of them all, and like I said, I would actually classify it as a gospel blues pop album. And speaking of the record as a whole, her vocal gymnastics felt over the top, the instrumentation sounded overproduced, and it gives the impression that she didn't know how to approach the genre. To put it into a metaphor, it was like someone read a Wikipedia page on how to play guitar and then proceeded to try to play the solo for Hotel California and got an award for best performance. That's what it feels like when you listen to it, because you can hear the attempt at trying to make it a country album, but it's just not there. So to sum it up, Cowboy Carter is not a country album. It was an average record at best and didn't, in my opinion, warrant any rewards, especially in the category of best country album of the year. Texas Hold'em was overplayed. Her repetition of the word dance in the Riverdance song is just, it's annoying, and the record sounds overproduced, and even having the featured artist throughout the record does not elevate the album to any higher level. But that's just one dude's opinion. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my thoughts. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think that the album deserved to win? Do you think it should be classified as a country record? What's your opinion on the Grammys, and do you think that they're rigged? Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.